Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dynasty Gambit. I'm your host, Kyle Senra. No co-host tonight, but joining me for this episode is Zach Pellowski,
Hey
one of
there.
the newer members at Going for Two, and this is, of course, a Going for Two live show, and I've always ramble on them and interrupt over everyone, so sorry about that, Zach, but welcome to the show.
Hey, no, I was jumping in. My bad. No,
You were
thanks.
taking a gambit, just
Yep,
like I did there.
exactly,
Sorry.
exactly. I just had to fit the theme. But no, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad it worked out. I'm excited to cover the topics we're planning to talk about today.
Yeah, really. I called it the calm before the storm because some news. Actually, today would kind of a bigger news relative to maybe everything else on the show we're talking about. But our next episode after this will be during the NFL draft. Really, normally Thursdays. Every 2 Thursdays is normally what we do here on the Dynasty Gambit. But of course, there's live shows all the time on the Going for Two live network almost daily. You can find everything on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube in terms of the videos. Twitter comments we do seem to have trouble with. So the other platforms are YouTube, Twitch pages, especially Going for Two Live. Search them up there, and then you'll be able to join us and be able to interact and talk. But otherwise, Zach and I have a bunch of topics to run through, and yeah, kind of stuff before the NFL draft. Really, our last chance to talk on the Dynasty Gambit before the NFL draft. So I guess, we're both Packers fans, so I suppose there's a bit of celebration to have happen here with the most recent news of things we're going to touch on. It appears that Sammy Watkins has signed, what I saw was $4 million over for one season only with the Green Bay Packers. So Watkins to the Packers. So Zach, as a fan of the green and gold, what are your thoughts?
Disappointment. That's probably the best way I can describe it. Like we were talking about pre-show, I view Sammy Watkins as a worse version of MVS. I didn't know that existed or that would be coming, but here it is. Obviously, Aaron needs some sort of weapons to throw to. I don't know if we can call Watkins really a weapon at this point. He's been up and down and all around in regards to his production. However, it's at least nice knowing someone that's not practice squad material anywhere else will be out there alongside Lazard, but the Packers have some real issues in that receiving core right now.
Yeah, looking like, before this, if you had 11 personnel out on the field, you'd have, Randall Cobb in the slot, of course, Alan Lazard, and probably Juwan Winfrey outside. So, in the sense, I like it because it at least improves the wide receiver core. So it's better than what it was a few hours ago. So in that sense, it's great. But I get your sentiment, although I think I will push back on we didn't know that there was a worse version of MVS because we have had Equinemius St. Brown on the team, and that seems like the worst version of MVS, to be fair.
You're not wrong. I mean, I'm looking at it. Where's Jake Kumaro when you need him? That was the big issue a couple years ago, and Rodgers wasn't happy when they let him go. Could use him right now.
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of thought Kumar was a little overrated, to be fair, but yeah,
He was.
He would start for this team right now, so that again would be better than all due respect to Juwan Winfrey, because I do think I think he's probably going to make the team, but that's a little too deep on the roster, I think, to what we want to talk about. But
I mean, real quick though, I did like what I saw with Winfrey last year. I've been working on a piece about Jordan Love, and I was doing a play-by-play breakdown of Jordan Love's time, and of course that overlapped with Winfrey's time, and I saw actually a lot of stuff I liked there, so I wouldn't be upset if he's on that depth chart come the start of the 22 season.
Yeah, for sure. And it seems like, the likely scenario, the Packers drafting wide receiver, whether it's in the first round or not, with all the, especially thinking 4 picks in the top 60, there's going to be at least one wide receiver there, if not 2. So the depth chart will fill out, but you're still going to need a 5th, 6th wide receiver. And Winfrey does kind of fit the bill. When he's gotten chances, he's impressed enough to where they could kind of let go of MVS and Equinemius St. Brown. I guess if you're saying Watkins is, the worst version of MVS, is he half of MVS? Is he 40% of MVS? Because money wise, that is what they're paying for. So
I guess if it's bang for my buck, it's similar. I'm not high on Sammy Watkins by any means. I think we all were a lot higher on him a few years ago, and then enough years of believing that this upcoming season would be the rebound year and then being proven wrong. You kind of lose that hope over time. However, yeah, relative to what you're mentioning with the salary, I'll take it. They definitely need some sort of options there. Hopefully, you can at least be some sort of veteran presence as well if the Packers are addressing the wide receiver room in the draft, which obviously they are more than likely to do. But it's not terrible at all given what he's getting paid.
So I guess from a dynasty perspective, like he might be. I think we did a PLP, which you can still this maybe isn't the best plug for it after what I'm about to say, but you can still sign up for PLP Personal League podcasts where a few of us from Going for Two, we all get together and talk about the entire league. There's 12, 14, 16 teams, however many teams in the league. We'll go through team by team, strengths and weaknesses of the team, but a lot of actionable advice. What would we do if we're this manager moves to make? And one of the things I like is, okay, what's the back end, the stuff that you can cut off your roster? Because there's a few players here that, you don't worry about them being picked up by other teams. And I feel like for one team, they had a lot of rookie picks. And my thought was, okay, who are you going to cut? And I think I said Sammy Watkins, but also the idea is, maybe you can decide you're going to cut someone, but you don't have to do it until you actually have to do it as well. So that's to wait for the NFL to your rookie drafts anyway, and get more information like this. Now, if he's on the Packers, he's definitely worth rostering. So you don't seem too enthusiastic. So it sounds like you would still sell him for anything you could get.
To a point, I guess I would kind of view Sammy Watkins in the AJ Green role of last year, where there's potential in regards to usage, especially if there's injuries. Obviously, even more so because the Packers don't have the D-Hop, Rondale Moore types as of right now. And like you were mentioning, don't make cuts at this point in the year. I'm a big believer in, as the season's ending, trying to fill my roster if I have any open spots and trying to leave it that way until I make my rookie picks, and then I can make my cuts after that. Technically, unless your league has rules, your roster doesn't need to be eligible until week 1 when you're setting the lineup, depending on, if you have rules in place for that or not. But if they don't, why not wait? You can be patient there.
Yeah, for sure. Or even if there is like maximum, the hard cap of roster spots is there, then fill to that maximum. And if you're dropping someone, it's to pick someone up in particular because you're making a trade, giving away a pick to acquire a player. That's why I say like you don't do it until you actually have to. You can like decide and set it up to, okay, if the next time I have to cut a player, it's this. So yeah. So again, order your PLPs now. It's $100. I know Jeff sometimes runs promotions on them, so keep your eye out for those as well. But we'll give a bit more nuanced advice and just cut at the back end of the roster. I think there's a lot of good discussions that happen on those. But trades as well, big part of trades. So unless you have anything else to say about Watkins, we can talk about another NFL trade that happened. That's been the season for it.
I'm always ready to talk about more trades. I think that's about all I have on Sammy. I mean, I guess one last thing is the production could be there. We've seen Rodgers kind of turn the corner with certain receivers before, or even tight ends, Mercedes Lewis, some of those guys and Watkins isn't necessarily that old. However, he's been able to help them be at least a respectable fantasy producer a few weeks, at least half the year, depending on who it is. So I definitely wouldn't consider cutting Watkins. I wouldn't say his price is very high if you're trying to acquire him via trade or sell him, but he's definitely worth the roster spot.
Yeah, I think if you're going to buy him, a rookie 3rd round pick probably gets it done. Maybe now managers may want to hold on to it. I don't know that I'm giving up much more than that, to be honest.
I wouldn't give up a lot by any means, but it's worth a flyer. If you're one of those people that's stashing those 3rd and 4ths, why not try and take a flyer there rather than a 6th or 7th round pick that you don't know will for sure make the roster? So in that regard, I like the upside for Watkins.
I suppose if you're at either extreme, if you have like 7 picks in the 3rd and 4th round, you can afford to move one. And if you only have one, like it's tough to bank on that one player hitting. You really want to take more shots and your odds are maybe 1 in 3 that you'll hit. So if you only have 1/3, maybe take those odds and just grab a player on in Watkins.
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
If you've got only 3 or 4 picks in those ranges and you kind of have it set up to, okay, maybe need to hit on 2 of these, that's maybe where you're less. Even that might be too much of a price to pay. So if you rather have very few picks or hoarding tons of those late picks, then those are the ones that trade for Watkins.
Yep, I agree.
But yeah, so trade Devontae Parker was traded, and actually it's funny. Maybe we're hoping for a fifth-year breakout for Sammy Watkins, or sixth-year breakout, kind of like Devontae Parker
Yeah,
had a couple
yeah,
years ago. But yes, if he does bounce back or re-break out this year, it won't be with Miami, because the Dolphins traded him in division as well to the New England Patriots. I believe they got the Patriots gave up a fifth. It did
I
seem
believe
like
so.
it was very much the Amari Cooper situation, where the team was going to cut the player, and another team stepped in and basically were willing to pay a price big enough to not have to deal with waivers or have to go through other teams. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what this seems like.
I think you're exactly right in that regard. With what Devontae Parker's salary was, I think it was worth, I believe, yeah, like you said, the fifth round pick. I think it's worth it in that regard. I mean, if you don't want to compete over waivers, he's relatively on a cheap deal, so why not? I don't know if I love the fit from a fantasy perspective. From an NFL perspective, I do like it. I mean, I've never been too high on the Patriots offense in regards to passing game. I always go back to what was it, 3 attempts that 1 week against the Bills, right? Was it 3?
I believe so.
I just games like that scare me. I know Belichick is very creative with his offenses and can do a lot of different things depending on which opponent they're playing, but I don't really see Mac Jones as a guy that's getting a lot of pass attempts per game. So even if Devontae can be the established wide receiver one that's fairly productive, it's capped at a certain amount with those pass attempts.
I think maybe relative to last year, it's probably a downgrade. But if you were saying like what the situation was this year, where Devontae Parker was
Oh,
suddenly going to have to compete with Waddle and Tyreek Hill and
yeah.
Mike Gesicki,
No.
just making one more further step, this seems like a better depth chart to be on. I think
Yes.
this if there's any fantasy player that gets a boost, it's probably Mac Jones.
Yeah.
He gets the perimeter wide receiver, a second really good red zone threat next to Hunter Henry, and like those two can really maybe up the passing touchdown and like that type of ceiling that Mac Jones could hit.
I agree with what you're saying. Relative to staying with Miami, it's definitely an upgrade there. It helps Mac Jones, I think, as well. It'll increase Mac's stocks for dynasty leagues, especially. But overall, I think I've seen some people very excited about what this could be in New England, and I think we need to just calm down a little bit. Not Don't put the expectations too high. I like it, but we don't need to get carried away either.
Yeah, and speaking to our previous conversation, needing to cut players and stuff, I play a couple of salary cap contract leagues, and I know I've got one league where Parker from in our league anyway is in the final year of his contract. Salary cap it's whatever the NFL cap is. So I think right now it's, can't remember what they put it up to, 190.
Something
Right.
like that.
No, it went up, and it sucked that it went down last year. Freaking NFL cheap owners. But anyway, because that's really it's the NFL still made tons of money. They just chose to want to pay players less. So thanks, owners.
I mean, you could be like Green Bay and just always have a hard time with the cap space.
Well, yeah, and anyway, so 17 million at a $200 million cap, so or 190, whatever it is. So it's not huge, but it do want to kind of if I make a couple of cuts, including Parker, I'll end up with as one of the teams with the most cap space, and it's going to be a year where there's a few teams there, so there's not one team that has the whole stack. So the auction this year will be interesting. There's a few big name wide receivers in as well. So Parker seems like an obvious cut for me. Kenyon Drake as well. Jarvis Landry, if I can't trade him. Like I was almost hoping Landry to the Packers. Like that's something we would have preferred as Packers fans, but also from a fantasy perspective, like that would have been something in this league specifically, just so I could have traded him maybe. But that's probably another guy I'm cutting. But I'm also not doing that until we got to make those cuts, I think 3 days before the rookie draft.
Oh, at least you have some time then.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, or maybe even after the rookie draft, I think it might be actually 3 days bore the auction, whenever the free agent auction is, and usually have it maybe a week or two after. So, still a bit of leeway there. But yeah, so again, I think I already cut Big Ben just because that was one where it's like, I don't even want to see him on my team anymore, get him off. But these other guys, waiting just in case. Like I think in this particular league, Parker's contract's probably too big that no one's going to want to pay for it. Rather just, know that I'll have to cut him and just try to get him in the auction. But Landry's only at like 8 million. So that might be tradable again. waiting for the landing spot though, so that's gonna depend. So even though I know I'm probably gonna cut Parker, I'm still waiting until I have to. And maybe it's also a psychological thing. The team that has the most cap space suddenly like, oh, I have the most, and then oh wait, and a few days before, oh, suddenly this guy has the most. So
oh yeah, no, that's usually how it goes. But I think that's a good call in regards to waiting on the cut there. But I'm also surprised. Clearly, there must not be any Patriot homers in that league because I figured someone that's a New England fan would definitely be trying to buy now, see what year 2 of Mack with Devonta could look like.
I guess there is a Patriots fan in there, but no, I think he's a little too cap savvy to want to take on that Parker contract.
Usually that's the one you have to go to. Hey, I have the best weapon on your team now.
We'll see. Maybe I'll make that call before I cut Parker. And it worked for the Patriots, or worked for the Dolphins with the Patriots. But I guess moving on to the next topic, a few running backs to talk about. So one is Melvin Gordon, and there was almost news. He almost signed with the Ravens, or it seemed like it might be imminent, and maybe that's still the case. But where do we expect Melvin Gordon to land?
There's so many options I would like to see. It sounds like Baltimore or Denver are the most likely. I keep looking at Buffalo. What are you going to do there? Obviously, there's some later round picks that they could take if flyers on if they don't want to take Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker or someone like that fairly early on in the NFL draft. I think they have other positions they should address first. But I look at Melvin Gordon. I look at him as a guy that can essentially do what he did in Denver last year, regardless of what team he goes to. If there's a team that needs a clear starter and they're going to take a Breece Hall or a Kenneth Walker, Spiller, you name it, whoever it is, he can be that veteran guy there to kind of take the workload off of them off the bat. But I keep looking at Denver as probably the most likely, and Baltimore just gives me a headache. I don't know about you, but every time you might feel good about Dobbins or Gus Edwards, it's either an injury or they bring someone else in, and suddenly 30 carries are divided up by 5 guys. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think Denver would be a better scenario fantasy-wise. And the thing with the Ravens O-line was really not that great last year. So he would actually probably be getting almost a downgraded offensive line if he went from Denver to Baltimore. So I would rather see him stay in Denver maybe this is more selfish, but I have a lot of Devin Singletary. So I don't want to see him go to Buffalo just for that reason.
That's fair. Yeah.
But that probably would be a pretty good fit. The two teams I keep coming back to as good fits, and they seem like obvious good fits last year for running backs, and no one landed there. Atlanta and Miami, and especially Miami with the improvements they've made on the offensive line. I think that might be the number one running back landing spot this year.
Yeah, no, I like a few other additions for Miami. No, Atlanta is one that just kind of I constantly scratch my head. I mean, obviously they managed to turn Cordero Patterson into something none of us expected, but Mike Davis was a flop. I just keep waiting to see them do something. I don't know what, but they always manage to surprise me in not necessarily the best of ways. Yeah.
Yeah, Atlanta sports fans. At least I think the Hawks won last night or the night before, so that's a good sign there. A very young team, a Trae Young team.
They had the World Series, so they're good.
Yeah. I don't count baseball though, so it doesn't matter. I'm more impressed with the Grey Cup victory than a World Series, but that's just me. A little biased there, but so. Player I'm not really biased about is Marlon Mack, and unfortunately he's going to what I think is the worst backfield to be in, because it's almost what you were saying about the Ravens, and it's also like the Ravens. The offensive line isn't great. I think it was the worst run blocking offensive line last year, if I remember correctly when I was looking at Football Outsiders metrics for it. But also the timeshare and the split, as much as Marlon Mack we think is probably the lead back there. I mean, I don't know that he's necessarily a workhorse when Rex Burkhead's still there, and now I can't even think of anyone else.
Did they let go of Phillip Lindsay, right? Isn't he a free agent?
Right, yeah, because he ended up with Miami. I guess they also, and David Johnson's still a free agent, so I don't think they've re-signed him. But I guess they've got like Scotty Phillips, and a few other guys. So maybe Mac, maybe it's a bit less crowded of an RB room this year than it was last year, but I still really hesitant with that O line. But you excited for Marlon Mack ending up there?
I am, because especially given the fact that I was concerned Houston would use a earlier pick on a running back, not necessarily a first rounder or anything like that, but they clearly have so many areas they need to address right now where it doesn't necessarily fit. And I didn't want to see any of those top tier running backs that I'm trying to target in my dynasty rookie drafts go to a place like that. Like you were mentioning about their offensive line, not good. Not good at all. And I don't want to see a rookie's career just go down the drain just like that because of the position he's in with the lack of support around him. And I am curious to see what Marlon can provide for us. I know he's shown some bright flashes with Indy. Obviously, JT is just JT, so not much you can do about that. But I'm curious to see what happens. I mean, he's got a little bit of versatility. It should be fun with Davis. I like it better than any of the options they had last year. So I'm eager to see what's at stake there for him. But what about you?
It's funny because Marlon Mack really had the 1 year where he could showcase as the lead guy because he was dealing with it's one generational back together. You had Frank Gore at first. Maybe, Colts Frank Gore isn't quite 49ers Frank Gore, but still pretty good enough
Yeah.
to keep Marlon Mack off the field. And then, JT gets there, of course, like that year, the Achilles tear definitely factored in a lot more than Jonathan Taylor being on the team. But it
Yeah.
seemed like it was going to be inevitable that Taylor was going to take over that backfield anyway. So I guess there's no heir apparent in sight for Houston, so it is Marlon Mack.
For now, I mean, Houston can do anything. Similar to how I was talking about Atlanta, Houston, I mean, even just going back to that David Johnson trade, that'll still always baffle me. But, Houston, I mean, Bill O'Brien's gone, so that's good at least. But no, Marlon Mack should be fun. There's at least an option there for if you're in need of a running back and you don't want to pay a premium price for a top tier guy. That's someone I might try and get for a relatively lower price that could fill my RB2 or flex spot if I'm desperate and people are stingy on giving up their running backs.
So I guess I'll take a little. Okay, actually, I was gonna something I forgot to mention earlier that I did want to talk about was just kind of comparing a couple of the topics. So here we'll start with Marlon Mack on the Texans or Melvin Gordon without a team. And Dynasty Gambit. So we'll specifically look at this from a dynasty lens. But who would you rather invest in right now and say either a startup or to trade for? Maybe the
Marlon.
answer differs in both those scenarios. But
Marlon.
Marlon,
I I think Rex, I mean, Rex just keeps aging. I don't know how he's still around for anything other than like an RB3 on a team, but Houston keeps giving him reps, and I'm ready to see Marlon get more of a chance. I think he can show enough during the preseason, during camps to get RB1 opportunities. How great will he be? I don't necessarily know, but the volume should be there. And with Melvin, say it's a Baltimore. You got Dobbins, you got Edwards, you got all these other guys, Baltimore loves their running back options, and they're going to try and use all of them. So don't love it there by any means. It would be slightly higher in Denver, but I still feel as if Denver, they saw enough flashes last year with Javonte where even if they bring Melvin back, it's just going to be for give Javonte a break. I don't really see it as something where 1A, 1B like it was last year.
all right. And then the other question, I forgot to get to this, but was Devontae Parker and Sammy Watkins. Who would you rather invest in Dynasty between those two?
Ooh, that one's tough. I still think Devontae. While I had mentioned the upside of Sammy being with Rodgers and how Rodgers can help some of those vets turn the corner, I think Devontae has shown a little bit more. They've kind of got a more stable system in regards to the other weapons around the quarterback with Green Bay, kind of up and down all around. So I think I would. While I'm not the highest on Devontae by any means, I do like what I'd be able to get in regards to Sammy. I guess it's all just a matter of how much you have to pay to get those assets. Because I mean, what would you say Devontae is going for in a dynasty league via trade?
Yeah, I haven't really seen many Devontae Parker trades even in light of this other than the NFL, of course.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine they're both kind of probably like I don't see very many managers willing to pay a second round pick for either. So
Okay.
if you could buy sell for thirds, I think that's kind of the price for both anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
It,
I would. You see, I don't even know. I think with this news, maybe the quarterback play of Aaron Rodgers is enough to push Watkins' value ahead of Parker. But I think I'm leaning to your side, and maybe that's. I think that if you're, I actually depends on how you view the situation. Maybe you make the bet that the Packers don't take a first round wide receiver, and that makes Sammy Watkins more appealing. But maybe we're
I,
both betting / hoping and praying that they do. So we're wishful thinking, kind of okay. He's not going to be the number one there, whereas I legit think Parker might be the number one target on the Patriots.
I think so as well. I think that assumption is right. I'm not too optimistic on where Sammy will end in the depth chart, or his final landing spot, I should say. But for now, it's worth the flyer because say Green Bay surprises us, only takes one second or third round wide receiver. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time it was a consensus assumption of what Green Bay would do with their first and second round pick, and suddenly we're all mind blown. So with Green Bay's front office, never doubt them to keep you on your toes with their draft picks.
That Gutekunst is going to reach on another defensive back that's actually going to turn out to be amazing, even though no one's like, hey, this guy shouldn't go in the first round. And then, oh, actually, I guess
But
he should have. He tends to do
he
that.
he is known though to really draft off of physical traits, and someone that fits that mold and also is a wide receiver, Christian Watson. I don't know
Supposedly
if
there was a visit recently, too. Yeah, he visited the Packers, so.
good. That's what I like to hear.
Okay, so you didn't know that. So that's just
No.
natural transition there. Good job, Zach.
Um,
I just wanted to quickly look up the Texans depth chart because I think to me it was easier Parker over Watkins. I'm a little. I think I'm still kind of leaning Gordon over Marlon Mack. So I would, of course, aside from Mack, if we assume he's the lead guy and Burkhead's the next guy, there is still Daario Gumbawali, and they did bring him in. I do wonder if they brought him in because we saw, David Johnson at the end was kind of monopolizing the third down roles. He wasn't always getting the targets every time. Certain matchups he would, but he was just out there so often. I wonder if Ogumbawale is going to really cap Max upside, and he's really just going to make him an early down back. Royce Freeman as well. I mean, I think I like Royce Freeman more than all those guys, but I don't think anyone else does, including the Texans. So, and then I mentioned Scotty Phillips, Darius Anderson as well. I remember watching tape on him. I thought he was pretty decent. Surprised he went undrafted, to be honest, and he hasn't really been able to catch on. I think we went to the Cowboys initially, but not all of those guys are going to make the team.
No.
But I could see Mack, Burkhead, Ogumbawale kind of being a big three-way split, kind of a headache. So I think I'm going to take the risk on Gordon right now, hopefully landing in Miami and Atlanta. And yeah, if he goes to the Ravens, it might not be great, but I think the only thing that'd be worse is if Melvin Gordon ended up with the Texans too. And then what when you do that?
You just hit what I was about to say. I was going to say maybe Ogumbawale uses his old University of Wisconsin RB room as a reason to recruit Melvin to come out there. So I hope not. I mean, for the sake of wanting any sort of value in Mac or Gordon next year in fantasy, that's not what we need. But I can see where you're coming from with Melvin. I guess I'm concerned about how much of a transition Denver will be taking into Javonte next year. But from the standpoint of now, it's not Drew Lock, it's Russell Wilson. That alone makes a compelling case. If Melvin goes back there and even if it's 60-40, if suddenly Russell's there where they're game planning more around that, there might be more of an opportunity for him to flourish. So I could see that for sure.
So speaking of the Texans, I will say I think I'd rather than go with Marlon Mack, I'd rather invest in the pass catchers. Maybe I don't really like tight ends. Maybe not Brevin Jordan, but I really like Nico Collins. I know we were talking before. You kind of seem to agree that I've got at least one dynasty share I think I got a couple dynasty shares actually. But I can definitely remember one in a salary cap contract league since I love those so much.
Hey, it's fine. I used my one share of Nico Collins to acquire Calvin Ridley before last season, so that's cool. Yep, still sitting on Calvin now.
Which, to be fair, I mean that's Calvin's price is probably third round pick right now anyway. So which is
Yeah.
probably what you spent on Nico Collins. So
Yeah, yeah, and we'll just pretend I didn't give up anything else with Nico to get him at that point in
uh,
time.
yeah,
But
if it's more
no,
thirds, it's okay, I guess. But the talk isn't about Nico Collins. We'll talk about Brandon
yeah,
Cooks because that's really
yeah,
the story here. Wondering, okay, in the last year contract where the Texans going to trade him, they've actually extended him, I believe, for 2 years.
2 years through 2024. Yeah,
So there we go. Brandon Cooks staying with the Texans and looking like it's going to be Davis Mills, the quarterback. So I think definitely would rather Cooks than Parker, Watkins, Mack, Gordon, right? Like all these guys we've talked about, right? Like
yeah.
that's not even a question, I believe.
No, I like Cooks more for sure. I like that the chemistry him and Davis has. I'm excited to see year two of that. I know Houston likes what they've seen so far from Davis. Obviously, the jury is still out, but relative to what the expectations were for him when he came in, he definitely threw the roof on those expectations. So I like Brandon there. I know you're not as high on Brevin as I am, but I do like if everyone can stay healthy that Cooks, Collins, Brevin Jordan, was it Farrell Brown as well was the other tight end there.
Yep.
Um, Obviously it depends on how much they want to use each of those running backs, but they have some pieces there. Hopefully they can address that offensive line so Davis isn't getting pressured quite as much and someone like Brandon can flourish.
Was in just a recent startup, and I think I took Davis Mills as my third quarterback, and I believe I ended up also stacking with Nico Collins. So
Ooh, I like that.
yeah, late guy, late flyer. I think the main receiving core is like a bit of an older crew. Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, Juju Smith-Schuster,
Okay.
those guys. So getting a young guy in Collins that I think could be a serious contributor for the Texans. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he's second on the team in targets. I almost expect it at
No.
this point, to be honest.
I would say that's a safe assumption at this point. I don't see who's coming. And same thing as I mentioned about the Texans with running backs. While they obviously any team would love to have these top tier wide receivers that are available in the NFL draft, it doesn't really make sense in regards to what they need as a whole to kind of progress as a team. So I think I for sure like Collins as the number two behind Cooks as well.
Just checking. Who was he actually was second on the team in targets last year. He had
Okay.
60 targets. Brandon Cooks at 134. I feel like it'll be closer. Like he's not going to
Yeah.
necessarily double him up, but I mean, if he was already second
Wasn't
last year, they haven't really brought anyone in. I mean, if it's anything, it's going to be a rookie.
and
So
what
yeah,
Collins
I'd be
was
almost
he
shocked at
hurt?
this point. Sorry.
Wasn't Nico hurt for part of the year?
Looks like he missed 3 games. So
Okay.
yeah, only
Wasn't
played
that towards the
14.
beginning? Because I feel like he almost had a touchdown week one, and I was super excited. I'm like, oh, Nico, here the stocks are already rising, and then he was out for a bit, and I think I think it'll be more even for sure. Nico showed a lot of athleticism and ability with jump balls, especially in the red zone, so I think he'll get plenty of targets.
Yeah, he missed weeks 3, 4, and 5, and only had 2 catches up to that point. So
Yep, because
it seems like, but once he came back, immediately 6 targets, 4 catches, 44 yards in that week 6 game. So
yeah,
they clearly, as soon as he came back, wanted to get him the ball, and just the one receiving touchdown came late in the year. So maybe hopefully because he broke through late, that kind of a little easier to find the end zone this year. But yeah, we'll have to see with Nico Collins. But yeah, I think
him and
again,
Cooks.
I think and even though I kind of again not crazy about the tight ends, especially the young tight ends, I think I would still rather invest in Brevin Jordan than again go to this running back room. So I. And I'm not necessarily afraid of the Davis Mills led passing offense in terms of, again, investing in these pass catchers.
So you're saying you'd rather have Brevin Jordan than Marlon Mack right now?
I think so, yeah.
I don't know if I would go that far.
I
I,
really hate this running back room. That's
I
the
guess
takeaway, to be honest.
I can tell. No, I like Marlon Mack enough where when I compare him with what Brevin, I'm high on Brevin. I'm trying to get as many shares of him as I can right now in my dynasty leagues. However, I think Marlon should be the RB1 and getting a fair a fair share of that snap percentage in comparison to the other guys there. So from that regard, the production level of Mack versus any sort of tight end that's outside of the, top 5 tight ends. I mean, I like Brevin, but man, the tight end position is pretty brutal right now in regards to what you're asking out or what you're hoping for outside of that top 5 or 6.
Yeah, for sure. But it also does seem like Brevin's not going too early in drafts either. Like he is
No,
like a
no, he's
fairly
a
reasonable
flyer as
price
well.
because
Yeah.
I think he caught 20 passes last year.
Yeah, nothing. He's definitely a guy that he has his fans, but that they're fans because they think he's a sleeper, not anything more.
Probably fans of the profile because it seemed like he was getting a lot of hype around this
Yeah.
time last year before the draft, and
Yep.
then fifth round pick. Suddenly, you kind of lose that hype.
Yep. Exactly. And the concerns of you know, if he went to a different team, there was
For
some
sure, that was an
excitement
awful
there.
landing spot in
Yeah,
that
and
regard.
especially yeah. I mean, previous QB situation is gone now, but still.
But yeah, I guess these guys all had really good profiles and came out, with all the hype. But now their rookie contracts are kind of ending. I think going into the final years of their rookie contracts, and seems talks have not been necessarily the most positive right now in terms of matchy things. There's still a long way to go. So they could all sign extensions within within a week. Who knows? But AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, and Debo Samuel. So any thoughts about any of the three of them?
Well, before I kind of dive into each one, I'm curious, out of those 3, who do you think is the most likely to change teams prior to that next contract? So getting traded here soon.
Yeah. Um, Part of me, I guess it's tougher to say because I think DK and Debo both are more likely to me. I'd say AJ Brown is the least likely to move. Um, and I think part of it is the team histories. Now, the Seattle's kind of kept guys like Baldwin and Lockett longer, but I think DK is going to command a lot more than what they're used to paying. And I don't know, depends what they do with the quarterback situation. Are they in a rebuild? Do they Now, if they are in a rebuild with a young QB, maybe you want to have DK and you set him up. So I think the one thing with Debo is Shanahan's talked about this too, is you don't need elite wide receivers. So maybe they're not willing to pay the elite price.
Yeah.
So as much as I think, especially as Packers fans, we'd love DK on the pack, for instance.
Yeah.
We tried to talk that into existence in the Full Press Packers pod earlier, but I kind of think it'd be Debo that moves if it's any of the three.
I as much as I want it to be DK as a Packer fan or to any other team as a DK shareholder in a few dynasty leagues, I don't necessarily see it right now. I read a report earlier today. Unfortunately, I don't remember who it was by, but they were saying that Seattle likes they like what they're seeing so far with Drew Lock. Don't know if I like that, but at the same time, if they like what they're seeing so far, I don't see why they would be moving off of DK at this point in time. In regards to Debo, like you said, I don't really see too much of an opportunity for him to really get paid what he feels he deserves with how the 49ers operate. And AJ as well, I guess, with just that point in time where Tennessee is at as a whole, I have a hard time seeing them move off of him. So I would have to say Debo is probably the most likely.
I guess we can. Well, I guess we are kind of like almost 40 minutes in. So the one thing I'd like to do with these three is how would you rank them for dynasty purposes?
Hmm. You should go first. I think
Well, I
mine's
think
gonna sound
it's
a little
funny.
hot takey almost.
It's this. I have almost the same answer I just said. I think of the three, AJ Brown stands out to me as the. I think I've got him as my wide receiver 3 in dynasty, and I think it's a clear top 2. But after Chase and Jefferson, you can go any direction, and I think AJ Brown kind of provides this crazy yards after the catch ability, where he is kind of a high range of outcome efficiency every time he touches the ball, no matter where it is on the field. So I think that type of he doesn't need the volume to kind of outproduce his ranking. Like if you look at where he ranks in targets versus where he ranks in fantasy points, he's going to be higher on the fantasy points ranking. So I think I still like Tannehill. I still believe in Tannehill talent wise. So I think he's tied to a decent quarterback in that sense. So I have Brown as the wide receiver 3 in dynasty right now. So clearly the top one of these 3. And then I think I'm pretty close on DK and Debo, kind of back end of the wide receiver 1 range.
Okay, so mine, I don't have AJ quite as high as you. My order on those three would be DK one, and then AJ Brown two, and then Debo three. They're all relatively in the same region. I've got DK a couple higher than both the other twos, but that's mainly due to the fact that I look at DK, I look at how he operated with Russ. I felt as if there was a lot of times I was watching Seattle last year and Russ was so locked in on trying to find Lockett. Um, it really seemed that that was his preferred choice. Obviously, Russ wasn't really the full iteration of himself, partially due to a finger injury. But I look at it and I think, well, I am not high on Drew Lock at all. Let's settle that right now. I think there's more of an opportunity for the workload to be spread out and for DK to thrive there. Well, do I think he's a top tier guy? I'm not. I'm always going to take Jamar or Justin ahead of him. Like, don't get me wrong. There's a few other guys I like more as well, but DK is the first on my list here. In regards to what you were mentioning with AJ Brown, I have a little bit of concern with Tannehill. I was higher on what I was going to see from Tannehill last season, and I was left fairly disappointed. Obviously, there was a whole bunch of injuries at each and every place on that offense, so it's hard to fully blame him for it. But Debo, that one's just a wild card. I don't trust it. It was great last year. I know the guys that had him loved it, but I don't know how much I want to bet on that being a consistent year after year thing. And so that's why I've got to put him third on that list.
Even though he was the wide receiver 3 last year, I think, or
Yes,
maybe, yeah,
exactly.
I think just what I think Cup and Adams were the only two ahead of him.
Yeah.
And I play in some point per carry leagues that I think Debo might have actually outscored Adams. So probably not going to outscore Cup with how crazy of a season he had. But I think I do have DK ahead of Debo. So like I said, like that's just so we both have Debo at
Debo
3. But
three. Yeah.
while we're talking about DK Metcalf, I did just make a trade, I guess last night. So
Okay.
so the league is a 12-team half-point PPR league. Tight end do get an extra half-point premium per reception, so they get a full point. Half point per first down for everyone, so rushing, passing, and receiving. And because I know some leagues where you don't actually get the points for the first down points for passing, so
Okay.
a bit of boost to the quarterback scoring. And it's what I call a hyper flex. So one start at each position and then 6 flex spots and a super flex.
Okay.
So start 10.
Yeah. I'm in a
Anyway, so
similar format. Yeah. But sorry, continue. Your
yeah,
trade?
so I acquired DK Metcalf, and I think my
Ooh.
first Dynasty DK Metcalf share, and I gave up Joe Mixon, the 207, and a 24 third round pick to get a 24 fourth. So I just moved back one round in 24, and that wasn't a big deal. But a third, so move back from the second to the 310, so 207 to 310, so just over a round difference, and DK Metcalf. So a 3-for-3 trade there. So flip Mixon into Metcalf with 2 trade downs in
I
one
like
round
it.
each.
I think you got him for a relatively fair price. I'm assuming you're good otherwise in regards to running backs if you're trading Joe.
Not really. Clyde
No.
Edwards-Helaire is my RB1, but this is
Oh,
maybe the type of league where you only have to start one. I'll try and figure it out,
oh
but I
yeah,
also
that's
don't
true.
want
That's true.
I
Yeah, in
think this
that
is
format.
probably a good buy low opportunity for DK. So I feel like
I
I can
agree.
more cheaply figure out ways to settle that running back
Yeah.
position. So
No, I completely spaced out the format again right after you said it. So no, that makes sense in that regard. If you only need one, definitely worth it because if DK, whether Seattle gets a new QB or if for some reason Locke looks relatively okay and he's throwing a bunch to DK, the stock will still go back up. I think his lowest is right now, just because the name Drew Lock on paper at that QB1 slot in the depth chart is turning everyone off. So I think this was your time to buy for sure.
And the one thing is, DK didn't do so badly with Geno Smith last year. And I
No,
mean, I don't think Geno Smith's that incredible to where I'll say he's like even. I don't even know that he's better than Drew Lock. Honestly, like he's really hasn't shown anything that proves that. Which, quick rant. I noticed this when I watched Draft Day, but I just rewatched it recently. And in the they've got Gruden in there, and a very accurate portrayal because he does seem like an idiot when he says that. They actually compare Dan Marino and Aaron Rodgers to Geno Smith in terms of quarterbacks that fell, right? And that just I laugh every time I hear that clip because it's like I believe this was like when this movie came out, Geno Smith was still in his rookie contract. People actually thought he was good, but that's just a laughable take now that you compare two top 7-8 all time quarterbacks to Geno Smith.
I mean, I don't hate that comp. No, actually, that's not true. I absolutely do hate it. I feel the same way as you about it. But in regards to Geno Smith, what was he the 2013 draft as well?
The EJ
Yes.
Manuel one, I
Oh,
think.
yeah.
Mhm.
And speaking of that, speaking of Geno, that 2013 draft, the quarterbacks there. I hate to say it. I know some people like the guys in the 22 draft, but I'm looking at these 22 QBs and I feel like it's 2013 all over again. I don't. I know some people love Malik Willis. Some people see some other guys there, but sorry, I don't want to take us too far off.
Well, that's actually maybe the perfect transition because I think again, so we obviously made the trade for DK, so I like the trade, and you seem
Yeah,
to
no,
like it
good
too. So
job. Yeah,
I think it's a good time to talk about the rookies. We got we're 45 minutes in, so good time to talk about the rookies right before the NFL draft. And yeah, the quarterbacks, especially in superflex leagues, it seems like it's where it's at. So I guess the first question is kind of what are we expecting here in terms of first round NFL draft quarterbacks?
Malik Willis seems like a lock for sure. I'm thinking there's probably going to be what 3 or 4 taken in the first round. Uh, You know what? I believe it would be what Kenny Pickett, um, and then Willis and who was the other? Matt Corral maybe or Ritter. I'm curious to see what teams are high on which guy. However, that doesn't really change the price for me, when I'm looking at it from a dynasty perspective. But yeah, I'm looking at 3 or 4 in the first. I don't know if I love the pick for any of those teams. I don't know if fans should necessarily get that excited about what is potentially there with that QB. I think this is a year where you want to take that Mitch Trubisky, Drew Lock 1 year filler and start eyeballing 2023 because you got some great choices there.
Yeah, so I'm looking at grinding the mocks right now. And for some of these players, like for Malik Willis, for instance, they've taken data from 1,486 mock drafts.
Ooh,
And his expected consensus draft position through that is 12th overall.
okay.
Kenny Pickett at 12 and a half. So I feel like even like looking like maybe a week or two ago, there was a larger gap between those two. So now
Yeah.
maybe a bit of, you know, a little hype kind of worn off Willis specifically for NFL drafting.
Yeah.
But I imagine because of his skill set, even if like let's say Pickett somehow goes ahead of Willis in the NFL draft, I'd still take Malik Willis ahead of Pickett in a fantasy draft. But I'm
Oh,
also really low on Kenny Pickett based on the consensus, so that's kind of an easy take for me. But I still think Willis is the QB1 for fantasy, no matter what. Do you agree? Disagree? Is there scenarios where someone else is the QB1?
I look at Willis as the kind of clear cut number one, and I don't think it's relatively close. While I don't like any of the options necessarily, it's not that they can't succeed or turn into more, but my expectations are rather low for this class. I like Willis hands down more than anyone, but I'm not that high on Pickett at all, and I do find it funny how this big headline of his smaller hands a couple weeks ago that's spreading like wildfire has suddenly just gone away and he's flying right back up the mocks. So it shows how some of that combine stuff, it grabs the headline for a few weeks, but then suddenly it just vanishes again.
Like Pickett's tiny hands. No.
Yeah.
All right. Got a hand to me. That was pretty good. No, it wasn't. That was awful. But again, looking at grinding the mocks, they have Matt Corral as at the 29.4 in terms of the expected draft position. So back end of the first round. And then Desmond Ritter at 32.4, Sam Howell 36.9. So I'd say there's a chance that maybe 5 quarterbacks go in the first round, but
Okay.
3 to 5 seems like that's the range.
Yeah. For me, I don't like Kenny Pickett as much as some people. My top three, it's actually Willis, Corral, and then Ritter, and then I've got Pickett at 4, and then Howell. I'm not sure about you, but
Same top 3. I actually have Ritter at 2 and Corral
okay,
3, but yeah.
okay. I'm glad we're on the same page there at least. But I look at these QBs and I think what would make me most excited from a dynasty perspective in regards to a superflex league or even in a 1 QB league if I'm trying to stash a potential backup, uh, I want them to go to a clear starter already. Maybe an aging guy, say it's the Colts. Someone like
Mm.
that where they can sit behind Matt Ryan who's clear cut. He's going to be here. He's going to be our guy for right now. But we'll hand the ropes to you down the road. Someone where it's somewhere where the pressure isn't on them immediately. They aren't thrown under the fire and they're just trying to do what Zach Wilson was doing last year. I mean, I love Zach more than any of the QBs in this class, but I also look at Zach's situation in New York where, he was trying to be Patrick Mahomes in a situation that wasn't going to work. But no, I like Ritter, I like Corral, I like Willis, but I would be cautious in regards to um, how I'm approaching this rookie draft with my teams. I'm
So,
not sure. Go ahead. Sorry.
well, we'll talk about super flex rookie drafts, like first round. How many of these guys would you be comfortable taking in the top 12?
Top 12. That's tricky. I don't know if any of them.
Oh, not even Malik.
I
Wow.
I mean it for Malik. I think it's relative to what team he lands at. Obviously, if he's getting all the reps right away, I mean a Pittsburgh might be interesting just based off the weaponry already there. But overall, I don't necessarily trust it because if I'm in a super flex dynasty league, yeah, you want 1 year of production, but just trade for Tom Brady or Matt Ryan at that point. You're going to get it for cheaper, and in in my eyes, I would rather use that first round pick on a lot of these wide receivers that have a lot of good profiles right now. There's a couple running backs that look great. And I'm honestly the person where I'm trying to get in the top four for a select group of wide receivers, running backs, or I'm trying to move all the way back to the end of the first. Let me get someone that's slipping, and then get some other stuff. Maybe improve my draft slot for next year, or another pick next year, or more picks in following rounds. I'm not sure about you.
So I do think that makes sense. I guess I've the one league where I had a top four rookie, but actually I had two top five rookie picks. I had the 101 and 105. Only with Dak Prescott at quarterback. I think Geno Smith was the QB2 or Cam Newton. So, in a 14 team super flex, really needed to address the QB position. So I just traded both picks for Joe Burrow. It was
I
both
like that.
picks and a 23 second to get Burrow and Corey Davis. So a
No,
little bit of wide
that's
receiver depth. Mostly a throw in. That is all just about getting Burrow. So
I
if
like
you
that.
need, again, if you're, I think if you're picking early, and I'd imagine the 101, 102, or a lot of super flex drafts are going to be Brees Hall, Malik Willis. So if you
Yeah.
got one of those top two picks, maybe the best move, unless you're playing to take Brees Hall, and I
Yeah.
don't know if he's your number one rookie pick.
And oh yeah, Brees Hall is my number one. In regards to the top 12 with taking the quarterbacks, I expect other people to take them. It's just that I don't want to invest my picks in those slots. It's not. I'm not projecting Malik to fall to the second round. That's ridiculous, especially in a super flex league. But I don't want to be the guy that's investing in that. I want to be getting guys that I'm genuinely excited about. I see a long-term future. I like what you did with that Joe Burrow trade. And I mean, if your team already doesn't have a quarterback and you're struggling to get one for what's a relatively even price or even a slight overpay where you're having to overcompensate, at some point, just roll it back another year. I know it's not fun to lose, but my whole thing is if I'm in a crappy QB situation and I can't get people to budge, I'm just focused on trying to acquire assets next year. I already like the Bryce Youngs and the CJ Strouds, and so for me, while I don't want to lose another year, I'd love to be competing in the playoffs now, but I see a lot more potential opportunities for a long career where I have the super valuable asset in the quarterbacks next year. So I'm going to use those first to either roll it back or hopefully find someone that's willing to sell one.
Yeah. So again, I think if you're desperate for a quarterback, don't try and trade the first for the quarterbacks that
Yeah.
you're going after, as
Yeah.
opposed to forcing the picks with these rookies.
There's just a lot of these rookies, you don't necessarily know how much production is going to be their week one, let alone even by the end of the first year. Some of these guys look like they'll be going to teams where they'll just be in that backup role. Where, say, someone else already took Malik with 101, 102, and you're that 103 spot and you're desperate, or say just a top five pick. I wouldn't suddenly start looking at Ritter or Corral, Pickett, Howell, any of those guys as viable options to fill uh, that need right now. So in that regard, that's where either use it to trade for a QB or trade back, get some guys at other positions that can help you. And I'm not sure about you. I have a little bit of a different philosophy in regards to Superflex, but while you always want two great QBs, I'm not going to overextend on a guy that is going to be my Superflex QB that's a bottom third QB when there are some just beautiful options at the other positions. If I can have more depth there, yes, please. Obviously the QBs tend to always produce more, but some weeks those those bottom half guys will throw up some real stinkers too, and you can get more consistency at other positions.
Yeah, try and get to the trade for the top 15 quarterbacks. Like you
Yeah.
don't want to really be starting QB 20 through 20 through 30. Really, like those guys are kind of, you don't really want to be in that range. So
I've been there before, and I'll just tell you this much: it's not fun.
yeah, so yeah, I'm trying to think of, like, again, that league I didn't want to. Well, I didn't think I'd be able to start Cam Newton, so that was all about getting Burrow, trusting
Yeah.
Burrow more than a couple of rookie picks. Trying to think what else. I've got a league with Josh Allen, Ryan Tannehill, right? Like I like Tannehill, so I'm willing to say like that's kind of he's above the line of where I want to be for my QB2, but that's kind of where that line is. Like
Yeah.
Tannehill, Derek Carr, maybe Tua now with the Tyreek Hill trade, maybe Mac Jones with the Devontae Parker trade.
Yeah. I'm you know, I'm scared about Tua in dynasty for in yearlies. I think it's worth the risk, but this is definitely in regards to dynasty. If you believe that Tua has what it takes, now is the time to buy before he blows up. But if you're more on the cautious end of it and you know that this is kind of the make it or break it year for him, where Miami is most likely going to move on if they're not impressed with what they see with Tua now that he has weapons, I would I would be I'd be cautious. I'm not the highest on Tua. How do you feel about him, Kyle? Like,
It's funny because I know of another league that I'm in. I just did the startup in the it's actually the one I was talking about earlier with Davis Mills is the QB3. Went
yeah,
Russell Wilson, Ryan Tannehill. Tua was on the board when I took Tannehill, and this was pre Tyreek Hill trade. I think maybe by the
okay,
next round that the Tyreek Hill
yeah,
trade happened, so I was already regretting it by a round later, kind of thinking, oh, that might have been nice, but that story right there probably tells you everything I think about Tua, right?
yeah.
Like I'd rather invest in Tannehill. So
I mean, there's plenty of other options where, say, you get one great QB, that one of the top half guys, and you don't really love your other options. That's when, I just use a few deep roster slots for the Drew Locks, the Mitch Trubisky's, the Matt Ryans. Like I don't love any of them. Don't really expect to sell them for a whole lot if someone comes trying to buy, but you know, maybe there can be a couple week stretch where I like their opponent and just try and buy in on that. You don't always need to be too aggressive in that regard.
So, great guest we've had on the show, even just most recent episode before this one, Gerson McGuire asking, is Jimmy G that much better than Tua? I mean, he's a good buy with all the weapons, upgrading the offensive line and coaching changes. So, like those comments are for Tua, but yeah, Jimmy G or Tua in Dynasty.
Uh, I'm
Well, oh
right.
wow, I didn't even think that's. I think it's 100% Tua, but I'm.
Yeah, or I was just surprised by the question
Oh,
because,
okay.
like, as much as I was just devaluing Tua, I'm still going to take him over Jimmy. I don't know if Jimmy is going to have much of an opportunity for a starting slot in years to come. There's a
Davis
few.
Mills over Jimmy G for sure, easy.
Yeah, there's a few guys that
Me anyway.
No, I agree. I just don't know how much of an opportunity. Oh,
He's just trolling us.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, a
yeah.
little
No,
shocking question
that
too.
makes more sense. He
He's
scared
not
me.
debating. He's all in on Tua.
Yeah,
So Gerson probably hates that Tannehill over Tua pick I made in the startup. That's another one of those things where he's just, oh, Kyle, why are you doing that? But sorry, Gerson. That's my team anyway.
yeah,
I'll screw it up
exactly.
if I want. We did
No,
get the good news of Robert Woods going to Tennessee after that, though. So I think that was a bit of a benefit there.
yeah, no, that was a good move by them. I think Tannehill's another guy where he's hard to completely lose hope in. You keep wanting to tell yourself that this next year can be the year, especially with the weapons around him. If there's more health luck, I should say, for the good rather than the bad this time, you want to believe that things can look better. Um,
So anyway, so you mentioned earlier you wanted to trade up into the top four of rookie drafts. So we've already talked about Brees Hall as the number one, and you don't have Malik Willis in your top four. So
no.
who are the other three guys that you would kind of say, which sounds like a tier break for you after?
So it's it it's tricky because I expect other people to want Willis. If he's not 1.1, he's 1.2. And so leagues that I have 1.1 or 1.2 and I know someone is targeting him, I'm moving back a pick. I'm trying to acquire more. And I really like Drake London. I don't know if he's actually number 2 though behind Wilson for me. I like Wilson more. But Kenneth Walker is intriguing as well. I don't necessarily have Kenneth in that same tier. I have him slightly below. So I think I'm going to have Drake London 2, and then I'll have Garrett Wilson 3, and then 4 is Kenny. But Kenny is another one of those guys that I think is more dependent on team fit. But what about you? What is your top 4 like?
Yeah, so from a super flex, probably Hall, Willis, and I think I'd go Walker three. I do agree with you. The team fit important, and I think more than anything else, it's the offensive line. Is he going to get a good line to run behind? If so, near the goal line, especially, I think that's tons of touchdown upside because I love what I saw from him on tape. Probably more, even more so than Brees Hall. The rest of the profile, the production. I looked at Hall. It's over the course of his career, he averaged 1,500 scrimmage yards per season, and that's pretty and a relative athletic score, one of the best in the class, especially at the position, but just overall, like super freak athlete. So Hall's kind of undeniably the one, but I think Kenneth Walker to me is the clear RB2. So I'm willing to kind of maybe reach on him, quote unquote, and take him at the 103 in
I
the super flex draft.
I agree though that he's the RB2, and I think for sure, depending on when you're doing a rookie draft, if he slides into a great opportunity, 1.2, 1.3 is definitely worth it there. In regards to Malik, I don't necessarily love taking him in the first or but if it's a super flex, you have to at some point. If I'm at 1.5 and for some reason other people are turned off of him, I'm probably going to convince myself in that slot to just pull the trigger on him, bring him in, see what it's worth. There's definitely other guys I'm more optimistic in a long-term career on in regards to wide receivers and stuff. But if he's fallen a couple picks, at some point you got to do it. You can't just let the guy keep sliding. I mean, I think there's a few guys that slid last year in a lot of rookie drafts that just if try and be that guy that capitalizes on it. Don't pass it up because if no one else is believing in it, that's fine, but they're going to regret it if, they picked someone else and suddenly that guy's flourishing on your team. And that could be Malik, but I wouldn't get too excited and aggressive with that pick.
That's fair. And so, yeah, so for me, I think if I had to, yeah, those top three, Hall, Willis, Walker, and then my wide receiver one in the class is still Traylon Burks, but I'm starting to be sold more and more on Drake London the more I look into him. But I think I kind of have those two as maybe a mini tier of their own inside what seems to be a clear top five at the wide receiver position. If is that fair to
Yeah.
say? Like I think almost
Yeah.
everyone has the same top five.
Yeah. I'm yes and no. So top five, what you've got Burks, you've got London, you've got
And Wilson,
Wilson,
obviously.
and
Yeah.
then you've got who Olave. or
Yeah,
what?
probably Olave and Jamison Williams. Those are the five.
Okay.
It seems like, again, grind the mocks. Those are the first five expected to go in the NFL draft. And again, most mock drafts I've seen. I am starting my first rookie draft tomorrow, so unfortunately, I don't get to tell you listeners today. But maybe it's
Yeah.
also in my head. Maybe doing this episode to kind of plan out what I'm going to do with the 114. So we'll get to that in a
Yeah.
little bit. But
And I think for me, there's, I have those guys in my top five, but do I necessarily like, um, but top five in regards to slotted spot, where they'll be taken. So if I get my wide receiver 2 at the wide receiver 4 slot, I'm happy. But at the same time, that say it's Jameson at that fifth spot, I'm actually more prone to probably taking Christian Watson there rather than him. Uh, even though I like Jameson, I'm not really. I'm higher on what Christian can be long term, and while I think he would slide a couple more slots, that's one of those where if you really believe in someone, you just got to pull the trigger. You don't want to find out the hard way when someone else takes him shortly after. But
I mean, great night here on the Dynasty Gambit. We've had again, common guest on the show. He's done a ton of guest episodes last summer too. Gerson, co-host of the 2 Point Conversion, also on the Going for Two Live network. Jay's here, Jay Eubanks. So he's just saying, "Hey guys." So hey Jay,
hey Jay,
and thanks for showing up. Looking forward to the next 2 Point Conversion to hear from you.
yeah, I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to talking with Gerson about some IDP rankings here soon.
Ooh.
Yeah, we've been getting into that.
But anyway, so as I mentioned, rookie draft for myself tomorrow. I've got the 114. This is again that league I've got to reference that startup I did, starting with Russell Wilson. But the rookie picks were in the startup, so that was kind of an interesting dynamic to it. I've seen startups where the rookies themselves are in the startup, but in order to have a separate rookie draft, the rookie picks were in the draft. So again, I picked 114 and then a couple of fourths, 408 and 409 back to back. I was on the turn, so I just like
Now,
at this point I'll just take both of these. But
now you're talking my language. I just take all the kickers late so I can get those rookie picks.
I even took a punter because I took Ty Long because he has kicked field goals for the Chargers. Obviously, he's kicked a ton of field goals in the CFL as well. That's also a league where most teams will only employ one kicker, so you're kicking and punting. You better learn to do both. But anyway, so with the 114, my thinking is okay. I'm not gonna get Hall. I'm not gonna get Willis. Probably not gonna get Walker, and then those top five receivers are probably kind of out of it. So that's already down to the 108. From there, it's thinking like I think that there's that next tier of receivers where it looks like at least another 4 or 5 guys could all be top 50 or top 60 picks. Between, you mentioned Christian Watson, I think there's Jahan Dotson, George Pickens, Sky Moore. I know if anyone listened to the most recent Full Press Fantasy Pod, my co-host Brad is a little higher than consensus still on David Bell. But at least those other 4 guys, I think could be all good options. I think especially if they all get really good landing spots, end of the first, early second. If I get any of them at the 114, that's probably a good victory too. But the fact is I might not get any of them, which I almost might have to take Desmond Ridder, or I'm secretly hoping it's Rashad White. I don't know if anyone's watching this. I mean, Jay and Gerson are in the draft, but because Rashad White's my RB3 and fairly close to Kenneth Walker. So that's almost one where I'm almost hoping that he's there at 114 because I think I'll just take the running back.
I've got Rashad at my overall ranked 13th guy. So if he's gone at 13, and then David Bell would be gone at 14 on my list. So they're right in that range. From the ranks, I accumulated. I made an average of a whole bunch of different sources for where they're mocking these guys right now. But yeah, Rashad's right now right around 13.5. So that's a slot for you where that you're definitely going to be happy with that. I know I'm higher on Christian Watson, but he's going to be there. I would be surprised if he actually went as early, like as I was discussing. But sometimes you just have to go ahead on your. What's your thoughts though on Isaiah Spiller? Are you just completely
Yeah, I
out?
wasn't. It's funny because I wasn't as sold on the tape. I know some people thought like tape evaluation wise he was the best running back. I was higher on Walker, Hall, Keontae Ingram, but that's my own crazy love for Keontae Ingram. He's this year's Jermichael Hasty for me. Only he will get drafted, I'm pretty sure anyway. But
Hey, you sound
yeah,
like me
and
with
then
Jarrett Patterson.
yeah, I think I liked him more than Patterson. But Patterson did show out in the NFL last year when he was given the chance. So maybe I was probably too low on Patterson, if anything. But truthfully, it was okay. I didn't love the tape. Was kind of already thinking, okay, maybe he's RB 5, 6, 7 for me. And then the athletic measurables, the combine stuff came out, and while the production is certainly there, I think the little eye opening of the athletic part maybe confirming a little bit what I was seeing on the tape of not being as sold on him. So I think right now he might be right around there, like RB7 for me. He's one where if he gets the draft capital, though, I'll probably make bigger adjustments with draft capital more than anything. So he wouldn't be shocked if he's RB4 by the end of the process, if he is one of maybe the third or even second running back off the board. But
I've still got Spiller at RB3 right now, and then yeah, Rashad White 4, and then Zamir White at 5. But
yeah, I've got Keontae Ingram 4, Zamir White 5. So at least that's
okay, yeah, I've
somewhat.
got Ingram down a little bit, that's for sure. But I'm sure like what you were mentioning about Spiller having a high range. I'm looking at Ingram the same way. I've read a
Yeah,
lot of great pieces the past few weeks, and it's hard not to get excited when I read some of those.
I think I'm gonna get a lot of Ingram in the third round. Like that's someone where I know last year it was Anthony Schwartz. Whenever he was there in the third, that was kind of the well, I'll take this pick in the third. I'll take this pick in the third. I feel like Ingram's going to be that guy for me. Where even a late second, if I'm not sold on anyone that's there, especially something like a 14 team league, I think
Yeah,
I'm willing
I've
to,
got
I'm willing to reach on Ingram a few spots.
I've
We'll see
got
where he goes.
Algier in a similar position, and same with Pierre Strong Jr. Those are
Okay.
guys I'm looking at. Third round running backs. Maybe Tyler Batty as well.
Yeah, I
Uh,
like Batty pass
yeah,
catching. I like
but
both Tylers, Tyler Batty and Tyler Goodson. To be honest,
yeah,
I
no,
think I've got them both in my top 12 right now
there's
for
a
running
lot of good
backs.
options. I mean, for me, what's painful is I've been a Romeo Dobbs guy for the longest time as a sleeper. I took him in a Debbie league last year, and I was just loving what I saw in college. I was preaching like, look, this is going to be a late round pick. He's going to be a steal. It's going to be worth it. But now I'm slowly seeing more and more mocks where his stock just keeps rising, and I don't like it. While I'm high on him, I am not that high on him. And for the folks out there who like him, be cautious, okay? There were a lot of red flags, and there were really good weeks and there were really bad weeks. And obviously, depending on where he goes, but I would advise people to not be getting too aggressive on where they take Romeo Dobbs. That's one of those guys. If you get him in the third, perfect. But don't get middle of the second. There's plenty of better, more productive options there.
But in a sense, for you, again, greedy purposes, you might almost like that because it makes it in that Debbie League, have him as a more attractive option to sell.
Yeah, no, for sure. In that regard, I may be capitalizing on it, especially because I already have Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle, and DK Metcalf, so I don't need I don't need Romeo. But I I don't know. There's a few. I Calvin Austin is one I'm curious about, but one I really like is Alec Pierce. I think that well, Romeo Dobbs has been getting that hype more and more, and he's slowly been climbing up what I've seen in a lot of mocks for rookie drafts. Alec Pierce has seemed to stay relatively consistent, but he's a guy that I looked at as a focal point of what Cincinnati was doing last year. So, I mean, he's a guy I would love to see someone like Green Bay get with a third round pick.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, if that works out, if Alec Pierce goes to Green Bay in the third round, I might use a late second on him. I don't know. I might get weird and use a mid second. I don't, it all depends with
Seems
some
like
of
a
these.
better profile than a third round pick on Amari Rogers last year, for instance.
Don't remind me. I was really hoping that Randall Cobb acquisition would help him because Randall worked with him. I believe Randall had a
His
pre-existing relationship with his dad.
Yeah, I think
So
his dad was Cobb, or yeah, Mari's dad was Cobb's coach in high school, or had coached him
yeah,
at some point.
and
So
so he was helping him out. But I was really hoping there'd be more there, where by the second half of the year we would see Amari and Randall's role. but we're still waiting. So
I mean, I think the Packers may be content with just saying we just spent a third round pick on our kick and punt returner, to be honest.
yeah, I mean they probably
Because
should
we were
use
already
a
talking about Juwan Winfrey ahead of Amari Rogers, right? Like he wasn't even the
yeah.
option there.
No, you're right. We should probably use a first rounder on some more special teams at this point than after last year.
All right,
uh,
Packers draft.
no, I just
Buzzkill aside.
oh, sorry. I mean the Packers with the special teams. At least they made the new acquisition though. But no, there's a lot of these rookies. You know, what? How deep did you get into this QB class?
Probably not as deep as the running back class. That's just me
Okay.
though. But
Uh,
yeah, I feel he looked a bit at Carson Strong, not really strong profile. So I think to me, it's kind of those top five, and then I think it's a big drop off after that.
okay. No, for me, I've got Willis, Corral, Ritter, Pickett, but then I have Howell one slot ahead of Carson Strong. I'm actually lower on most people than Sam Howell,
Okay.
and I'm just slightly higher on Carson. But I think they're kind of that same tier. You know, like I said, these QBs be cautious, especially if it's not Malik. You know, I'm more inclined to try and fall back in the draft, get someone like Matt Corral, Desmond Ritter, Kenny, maybe not Kenny, but you know, just take a flyer, not putting all my chips in on one of these guys. But with these
When you say flyer, like are you saying back end of the first round, or you're saying
yeah,
in the second?
either or. I mean, it's or I guess yeah, for super flex, my whole philosophy as well is uh, do research, not in regards to what the mocks are, but in regards to who your opponents are, what their rosters look like, who might need a certain position, and try and get an idea in your head of who they could be targeting with that pick. Because, you know, there might be a guy that I really want with a middle second, and I have a late first as well, let's say that. But I realize there's a three or four teams that need that position in between those that late first and my middle second. Where if I don't reach on him with that late first, he most likely won't be there by that middle second. So I'm always big on trying to do the research, studying my opponents because, you know, sometimes I can let guys slide because I'm assuming someone's drafting for need, and you know if other guys need QBs, you might want to be a little bit more aggressive. But you know, Matt Corral, I'd probably say late first, probably 10 plus. You know, like I'm not 10th pick plus. Ritter probably second round. How about you?
Again, like I'm again at 114 I have, like I'd consider Desmond Ritter there. So
Okay,
I'm
I
kind
mean
of
that's
feeling
your
back end of the
QB
first.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, okay, yeah, we're on the same page there. No, what kind of wide receiver um class of production do you expect this year? I mean, I think we all look at some of these big name guys, the Justin Jeffersons, the Jamar Chases, and I think people get a general idea that if they don't produce like that, it's a bust. Or you know, like the hype isn't there the same way. And I get that's wide receiver one, wide receiver two in regards to dynasty value, but you know, there were a lot of good productive rookies last year, and I'm curious to who you view in this class that could provide that as well. Not the respectable production, not the over the top.
Yeah, I think Garrett Wilson just seeming like he's got the skill set. It looks like he'll probably be the first wide receiver draft as well. So he's got all the route running, the ability to catch, like everything that screams maybe immediately could be a possession receiver. So might get the most catches in his rookie season, for instance, out of this class. Like that's probably kind of an easy bet to kind of make if you were to kind of peg any of them to lead in any statistical category. Maybe Garrett Wilson and catches seems like that fits his skill set. But again, I kind of like the upside of Burks and London. If they could figure it out, they're going to have like the highest ceiling seasons that not quite maybe Jason Jefferson's, especially if Burks is on the Packers. We'd love that if he's considered the wide receiver 3 in Dynasty next year consensusly because of such a great rookie season. But even if they don't get to Jefferson Chase levels, I think they have the kind of ability to put up the 1,000-yard seasons as rookies and get
Yeah.
the 8-9 touchdowns. So
Um,
uh,
No, I agree. So while we're speaking on the last year's rookie wide receivers as well as this year's, um, what are your thoughts on Devonta Smith? And the reason why I ask that is because he is a second year wide receiver now, who is a high pick, taken high in all sorts of rookie drafts last year, but also someone that is realistically going to be impacted by another one of these wide receivers that we're talking about potentially going to Philly. What are your expectations with that?
I guess Philly, the trade they made with the Saints,
Yeah,
give up a pick that does maybe now they only have 2 first round picks instead of 3, so it does make it
yeah,
that like a third less likely to for Smith to be replaced, but they might still be they might get Drake London and
yeah.
or
Do you,
who's expected to go around there? Do they reach on Chris Olave? Do they take Traylon Burks? Like all
do
those kind of
you
scenarios.
do you have Devonta Smith shares?
So I don't think I do. So
Because
I'm
I have a few, and I guess my perspective is I'm concerned. I know there are certain people that are still really high on what's to come, but I don't want him to suddenly be slotted into a T. Higgins to Jamar Chase role, but they don't have Burrow. Um, I guess in one realm it can help him because there's another target defenses are game planning around. However, at the same time, I'm concerned about Jalen and his passing volume, where I think it could impact him. And part of me is almost trying to sell now on Devonta. Not that I don't think there'll be production, but I think the hype might be greater than the reality.
Do you know what kind of trades you're looking for in return? Are you looking for specific packages, or will it vary league to league?
I've been dancing around with a few people in regards to the trade talks. And I one was a Devi, so I won't use that one as an example. But right now I'm in a 16-man PPR, and the guy I'm trading with is Alabama. He goes to school at Alabama, so he's got the roll tide bias there with Devonta. But I'm I'm trying to get a higher pick. I'm trying to get someone earlier in this rookie draft. He's offering me right now, I believe it was 1.1.12 or 112, 116, and 2-1 for Devonta.
Yeah, so I
And
guess to map it out now. Okay, so what would you like? Are you trying to do it so that you get the best receiver you can at 112? Based on actually everything you said, I think that's probably the case.
yes and no. That's the tricky part. While I obviously want the best receiver, I already have DK and I have Jamar in this league. I had Calvin too, but Calvin will pretend he doesn't exist. So right now, you know, I would he this guy also has 1.1. So what I'm trying to do is use Devonta and Calvin Ridley, and use that to get me that 1.1. I want to try and get my hands on Brees because I need.
Yeah, you probably need to give up a running back though. Like, I'm just
Yeah,
thinking, like if you have any young running backs, that might be package that and Devontae to get Brees and maybe get one of those late first back,
sadly, I don't have.
which is why you want Brees.
I don't. I have CMC, and then I have Sony Michelle. So, so pretty much no RB2 is what I'm implying. But that's
Hmm.
where um, I'm trying to be aggressive there. But if I can't get the top tier running back, I might just take that flyer. I might take that 112, 116, 2-1 and take someone like you were mentioning with Rashad White. While usually I was trying to go for, I like having depth, but you can almost hurt yourself with too much depth. Like if you have so many options at each position on your team, but it's so hard to pick each week, and then you're more than likely to pick it wrong. If you have too much of the riches. But I like to consolidate my talent at the top and then retool my bench.
It
And
makes sense.
obviously,
The back end, like the dynasty principles, the back end of the bench, some of it is going to be young players that you had to have hopes for, but the other is also going to be like just pure win now players. They're just for points on my team for this year. I don't care
yeah,
if they retire and I have to drop them next year, right? So you kind of divide the back end of the bench in two different sections almost.
exactly. And I think right now I'm looking at this draft class and, you know, I'm not Where when you look at Najee, you look at some of the other running backs from last year. How would I guess say uh, the top three of last year in comparison to the top three of this year for running back? Are you higher, lower,
Hmm.
in between? Because I guess
Yeah.
what that would be. Obviously, you have
Najee,
to.
Javante, and Travis Etienne, right?
Yeah, and obviously Etienne
Versus.
we won't count as injury, but like
Mhm.
just going forward. I mean, but um,
Yeah, I mean, I could, probably might even alternate. Like, I'd probably still take Najee first. Just what he showed so much last year.
yeah,
Pittsburgh, the way they looks like they're going to use him over the course of his rookie contract. I think that's just so solid production, and he's getting enough catches too, to where it's not
yeah,
just throwing a
yeah.
bunch of carries. Like he really is getting the high leverage, at least a high leverage amount of targets based purely
The
on the fact
volume
that
is
he plays
there.
so
Yeah.
much. But yeah, so I'll still probably go with Najee. Probably go Hall ahead of Javante, but then Javante being the next one, and I think from there, and probably take. I think I'll take Kenneth Walker over. Actually, Walker might be closer to Javante, so I think that's the clear number four. And then it's Travis Etienne or Rashad White. They both kind of have that better in space. Best set is like pass catching running backs. That's kind of their forte. So that's a really close one to who's five and who's six. I think it might be the
I
most interesting debate.
I think I'm a little higher on last year's draft class for those top wide receiver or top running backs. Sorry, I
Yeah,
mean I
to me it
have
almost alternates like 2020 then or 21 then 22, 21 then 22, right? So
I
kind of
have
got them
Brees
two,
Hall
four,
higher than
six.
Najee,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
I'm not. There were some aspects of stuff that scared me with Najee last year. I didn't necessarily see. It felt like it was all volume.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
that's what kind of concerns me. And if obviously it's not like the QB really improved where they suddenly have this gunslinger back there, but at some point, I like to think that Mitch has more of an arm that he can use than a washed up Big Ben at this point. So I'm curious to see how that affects him. Javante, I think, will get more of a workload, but I think I would actually have to do Brees Hall, then Najee, then I'm gonna go uh, Javante, Etienne, then Kenneth Walker, then Spiller.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm kind of okay. So I guess so the thing with Hall is if you're already kind of saying ahead of Najee, like I know, and this is maybe a discussion that's kind of already happened in Dynasty, but is he already the RB2 behind only Jonathan Taylor right now for Dynasty values?
I think he might be. Yeah, I think at this point that's how you need to value it. If you want him, you're going to have to pay. I expect it to be worth it. There are a few landing spots where if he goes there, you are just going to be so, so happy. I think even in a not ideal landing spot, though, he'll treat you well. And with that kind of, um, for those people that are doing drafts pre-NFL draft, that has value in its own, where regardless of landing spot, you feel really good about what he can provide for you. And yeah, I would put Brees Hall at RB2 right now for sure.
All right. Anything else you want to discuss in terms of these rookies or any
Um,
other
just
Dynasty
want to
topics?
give my guy Trey McBride some love. That's a guy I might be trying to snag a little bit before everyone else.
We did have tight ends on the show sheet, but I conveniently don't want to talk about them. So go
I mean,
ahead. Say what
there's
you want about
no,
McBride.
there's not really much to say about them. But I would just want to say, it's more so a holistic view of the tight end position. If there's one or two tight ends out of any of them that you like, that you think could have a respectable, productive career, um, take your shot at it. Don't regret, reaching a little bit because most of these tight ends, their ADP is really low, really, really low outside of Trey McBride. And, if you can get a guy that's a late round NFL pick or a late round rookie pick and he can turn into a top 10 tight end, that bar isn't very high in regards to what they need to do to reach that, but it's easily worth, a later pick to get that. And that's where I always recommend trying to get that because there's so many. there's so many week in, week out guys at that position where I know if you think you can get something consistent, pull the trigger on it. But also, I did want to note, aren't most of the best tight ends guys that were later round picks? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's where,
Kels. Yeah.
yeah, don't be shy at taking that just the shot at like the blind dart toss. Like all right, I'm gonna take him. My expectations aren't high, but I liked him the best out of the bunch, and we'll see. I think that's the best way to approach most of this tight end class.
Yeah, Kittle and Andrews were probably definitely common sights in third rounds of their rookie classes. And even Travis Kelce was probably not totally coveted. Probably definitely was the first round pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because we've got this long in the episode, an hour and a half now, and I think we finally got the major disagreement point. Because my thinking is, and it's almost like we were talking about earlier with the quarterbacks. If you really need the tight end, I'd rather just trade for one. Instead of picking with the rookie, I'd rather use that pick to go with someone who's already established. And I mean, I guess with the contract situation now with Dawson Knox, he's probably a lot cheaper. Well, not so much like just OJ Howard coming in. Like he's someone that could probably be easily attained for any third round pick. So that's almost where I'd rather kind of invest those late picks in, is to just sell them for veteran tight ends as opposed to get the rookie tight ends. But I just hate rookie tight ends. So
no, I get that. I mean, with rookie tight ends, the expectation of immediate production is not there. It's those late round picks, guys that you might be unsure of at other positions, might be concerned about how far down the depth chart they are. And I mean, I look at someone like Kylan Granson last year. He was a guy that I was stashing with a really late pick in these 16, 14 man leagues. And, now he's moving up to tight end too. Doyle retired. They've got Mo Alley Cox, but they used a third round pick on him last year. He's a little undersized, but clearly they liked what they saw if they used that pick on him. And they gave him some usage even with two other tight ends there. But you can't take those type of guys with any sort of immediate expectation. It's trying to let it grow with time, hoping that there can be more, hoping that you can have a productive tight end, which isn't very common. But on your subject of Dawson Knox, I do need to say Cole Kmet deserves some love.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he's going to get the opportunity this year. Certainly more than last year.
I think he is undervalued in regards to what his production was and what it should be going forward, along with he didn't have the touchdowns.
He had 0, didn't he?
Yep, he did. But
that happened a lot last year. Strange, like how many guys like had 1 or 0 touchdowns, like considering the yards, like more than usual. I find maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that always happens, but just seems like Kmet, Kenny Galladay, those are big names. It wasn't just Jacoby Myers who couldn't score a touchdown. Suddenly it was everyone.
There was a whole bunch of them. Yeah,
and Jacoby Myers got a couple himself. So he was stealing them all from everyone else.
Yeah, that's why the tide changed, because Jacoby was actually scoring them. But no, I look at someone like Cole Kmet or any of those guys. Honestly, if they are getting targets, if they're getting receptions, and they're getting yards, if the touchdowns aren't there, I would still want to bet on that guy, because touchdowns are the most inconsistent aspect of production. Usually it's hard to, if a guy has 18 one year, it's hard to expect that same level the next year. Put
Adams,
it in the 8 to 12.
He's had 18 once, right? Like he's only ever done that once.
Put it in the 8 to 12 range if he had 18 this year. If a guy has 10, but he's usually averaging 4 to 6, let's drop that down a little bit. And for the guys like Kmet, where he didn't get any touchdowns, just based on that volume, I feel really good about that increasing, and overall the consistency of those fantasy points should be there.
Anyway, we were happy to have you here. I guess my co-host again couldn't be here, Devin or Brian, but give them a follow at Devin Deal and at Vandegrad 94. And of course, well, I'll put it on the screen. The Big Pellowski is Zach's Twitter handle. I'm at Senna Says. But Zach, is there anything you'd like to let the listeners and viewers know about you?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad it worked out. Hopefully I can be on again sometime and chop it up with you guys. Good luck in your rookie draft tomorrow. I'm still waiting for all mine to kick up, but good luck to everyone out there in your rookie drafts. It's that time of the year, and it's the fun time.
Yeah, for sure. I'll have so much fun here going for 2. And yeah, we're a big draft night planned, or a big draft weekend planned. It all kicks off Thursday which is the April 28th. So 2 weeks from tonight, which would normally be our night to go on for the Dynasty Gambit. But again, we're going to be going on Saturday instead. So there's going to be a few different groups of panels and hosts kind of hosting marathon episodes throughout the NFL draft day 1 and day 2, both on Thursday the 28th and Friday the 29th. And then, the Dynasty Gambit, we're going to have a special episode Saturday. I know last year I hosted something similar, and it wasn't a Dynasty Gambit episode per se, but I think we're going to incorporate that here. Devin and Brian are going to be on. Last year we went for 3 hours, so it's probably going to be about that too. I know Gerson's already committed to joining, so that should be a blast. But we always have fun here going for 2. There's always so many great shows. Mentioned Jay's earlier saying, he says good luck. So thank you, Jay. Actually, he had a comment earlier I wanted to touch on. Volume is always good. I think that was in reference to Najee Harris, and I was thinking the same thing. As much as the efficiency sucked, I did love the volume though.
Yes,
it's great.
You can always bet on the volume for sure, but it's just in regards to expectations coming out of college, I should say, Najee, I expected more of the breakaway aspect as well. The volume, great. Less impressed with the other aspect. However, when the volume's that high, you still can't steer clear of it.
No, for sure. Anyway, and so Jay wished me good luck with my rookie draft. And again, Jay, part of the 2-point conversion as a co-host there, along with Gladys. And then, of course, Jeff's always got the Armchair Fantasy Show. I guess not this week, but most Wednesdays. I guess 2 weeks from now, the NFL Draft Week, they may also not do that. But past the NFL Draft, it'll get back to normal programming every Wednesday night at 9:30. Catch Jeff and Ryan as they talk it up with a bunch of. They always have great guests on. That's always such a great show. We speak on it every second Tuesday. I think they're also Danny and Dee are going to host part of the Friday night for the NFL Draft show on Going for 2. So they've got kind of their own part of that marathon. I believe tomorrow it's. Gee, I should have checked this. I always forget because I know there's always a podcast Friday. It's either the hot route or bet on it. I believe it's the hot route this week. I think they had the Jerry. Those guys did the bet on it last week, I believe.
I'll take your word for it. I don't want to say the wrong one. I'm not feeling confident with my answer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure bet on it was last week. So this should be a hot route tomorrow. I know Bo's been doing so much great stuff on the NFL Draft, so probably I assume he'll continue to talk about rookies, but who knows? Maybe he'll want to spend the whole time talking about Sammy Watkins like we did. Go Pack, go.
Go Pack.
But thanks a lot for joining us, Zach. Thank you all the listeners, viewers, for all the fans of Going for 2 and Going for 2 Live. This was the Dynasty Gambit. Bye for now.